All right. Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday morning, and I got a much awaited video here, much requested video here between, the Witt brothers, Maurice Witt and Marvin Witt. So we're doing a dual interview here where they're gonna give you guys some game on their adventures post LTV. And so I'm gonna start this off with Mr. Maurice, the guy that you guys don't really see too much. But Maurice, how were you introduced to Lifting the Veil, and what did you make your decision to enroll in the program?
Pretty much I got, into the Lifting the Veil because I think Marvin was watching subs. So, I decided to actually, Marvin came to me like, hey, subs trying to do this, IT program. And I'm like, yeah. So, I contacted sub and see how much it was and, how to get into it. Because at the time I was working for S&P and I was getting treated completely badly. I'm just like, screw it. I'm gonna just go ahead and see, sales over here showing his paychecks and all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, let me go ahead and get to this. I think we'll be making way more than $17, than what I was making at S&P. But yeah, that what got me into it.
All right. And Marvin, why don't you take the same question so people can hear how you were introduced to it and what spurred you to jump on board the Lifting the Veil train?
Yeah, pretty much same deal. Like, so he's made a video, and I didn't have to do this. Sub was doing it for a while because I remember when Sub first announced it. I think when he first started it, maybe it was like 2017, whatnot. But like I was in college at the time, so I didn't really have time to really like look into it. But it just I think it was Morris, what was that? When was that? When we did it?
We got into it in October 2019.
Yeah, and I think and at the time I wasn't really doing anything, so I think like Sub brought it up. I think I brought it up to Maurice, like he said, and I said, hey, man, we should, I guess, go ahead and check it out. And then, from there, like you said, just contacted Sub and then got in there. And then, yeah, here we are now.
And man, I'm glad y'all jumped in because I was able to somehow run across y'all's paths, mainly through seeing Marvin's videos being posted. I'm like, who is this dude, man? And I just went ahead and tracked him down and stuff. And we've been tight ever since. Okay, so Maurice, when did you complete your training with LTV?
I think it was in July of 2020, I believe. Yeah, July 2020.
And when I say that, that means going through what I like to call the Lifting the Veil gauntlet, where you have to pass SSMS, SSIS, and then SSRS. When you finished, were you successful going through all three of those videos? I mean, all three of those interviews.
Yeah, July.
Oh, July 2020. All right. What about you, Marvin?
Yeah, same time. We started the same time.
So did you guys both pass the go through the LTV gauntlet where you both finished the same time, or was it maybe one failed one and one passed or something, where it's kind of like where it didn't line up exactly where you both passed on the same day? Was it something like that where you guys got past it on different days, or you both passed the SSMS, SSIS, and SSRS on the same days?
Yeah, I think we passed the sequel portion the same day. I remember that. The SSIS. I think I passed that first. I think.
I don't know.
And Maurice passed it, and then the SSRS. Maurice passed that. Then after that, I passed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it went that way. Yeah.
Because a lot of course, the discipline of concern for most people is SSIS, and so most people I talk to did not pass that the first time out, including myself. So I'm always kind of interested on what SSIS. Did you get past that on the first time, or did it take you a little bit?
No, I think that took a couple of tries. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said before, I think I got lucky on that. This cult Sub slipping that day. He asked me that one question. where where he says like what dang it, I guess I haven't touched SS because my role I'm not even messing with SSI yet, so like I haven't touched it in a while, man. So just trying to reference anything is hard, but it's that one question where he says like find the substring whatever, and I think you gotta use like find string and then substring and then what I'm talking about. I can't but like I was able to like actually like
Drive column transformation, probably.
yeah.
Wow. All right. So Maurice, um, was your previous work experience before lifting the veil, was it tech related?
At S&P, I was pretty much working as a robot operator, pretty much just doing stuff on the computer and from time to time having to go in and clean robots. But it had nothing to do with, database development, pretty much.
Okay. And S&P, and they paying you $17 an hour to mess around with robots and stuff, man. That seems kind of low, man.
Yeah, it kind of was because like the robot programmers, they made $25 an hour, and I was supposed to be set up for that, but then some stuff happened, and they gave it to somebody else that was less qualified than me. So I was just like,
you in the right place. You made the right decision to parachute out that BS. Marvin, what about you? Was your previous work experience, was it tech related?
Now my previous work experience, I worked as a with like housing operations for the University of Alabama, and that was just like dealing with like work orders, like going to like student rooms, whatever, if they need a bed change or something like that, or I guess like just moving stuff around campus pretty much, man, and like fixing stuff. So that wasn't tech related. And then I also worked at the Alabama football games as a they call it a fungineer. That's what they called it. But it's just like a greeter and stuff like that for the games. But no.
As long as you wasn't a male cheerleader, I'm good with that. All right, Maurice. This is an interesting question. Everybody wants to hear from both of you guys, but you'll lead this one off.
Okay.
How many interviews did you have before you finally landed your job?
I'm gonna have to say maybe 4 or 5. I can't remember.
All right. What about you, Marvin?
Yeah, dude, I think it was like 4 or 5 from Maurice. Because I know I definitely remember he had that one interview with the company out of Chicago.
Yeah.
That he could have had it. He could have had it. I think it was maybe his first interview too, man. He could have had it. He just messed up the freaking coding portion.
Yeah, pretty much.
They wanted him. They wanted him, man.
They wanted me bad. They wanted me bad.
Yeah, but he could have got it right at the gate.
Was the coding portion really difficult? It was just some stuff that wasn't real difficult, but it's just sometimes when you just, your first interview and the nerves and adrenaline is running and stuff, you might just, you tend to forget stuff when you're not used to it. Was it something like that where it was the coding part was really not that difficult?
It was kind of, I mean, like basically it was like a SSAS cube, and they wanted you to get the information from that and pretty much, decide, hey, look at this SSMS cube, SSAS cube, and then decide, where all your SQL stuff is supposed to be applicable at, kind of. So I'm gonna say it was easy, but it's just I screwed up on my part.
Okay. All right. So Marvin, how many interviews did you have? And I already know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from your mouth.
Yeah, dude, it's in the teens, man. I can't remember exactly, but it's definitely in the teens. Yeah. It's probably like a good, 15. I don't know. It's somewhere in the teens, man. It's so many.
So you guys,
like I'm pretty sure I got the folder on here, man. I could probably, although I didn't record everything, man. So that's a good
illustration, though. And the teens is a good illustration. And for everybody listening to this, sometimes it's just a numbers game and it's a crapshoot. You know what I mean? There are some people that's got a job on the first or second interview, and it's some that's been in the teens like Marvin, but it's just you know, don't get discouraged by that, because if you just keep grinding and keep going, and in those periods in between, you know, those interviews and stuff, just make sure you're still, you know, sharpening up your knowledge base. Because if you keep going, there is no other result other than you're gonna get put on at some point. But some people just, you know, they just pull the right card at the right time, you know. So
And
that's
for
good.
and bro, and that's just like interviews. We're not talking about assessments. We get into just assessments. You
Yeah.
probably getting like in that 50 range at that point. Just assessments, like before you even get to do the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it paid off because both of you brothers is working professionals, so it paid off. Maurice, can you talk a little bit about your resume process? Where did you post your resume? Did you deal with companies directly, or was it through recruiters, temp agencies, that type of information?
Like how I did mine's pretty much. I posted mine's on Career Builder, LinkedIn, and also Dice.
Okay.
But I think I got the most promise from, I guess, LinkedIn, because they send me a lot of stuff from LinkedIn. But actually, I actually applied to where I came from, where I went to. So it was just basically me just applying for their positions, and then pretty much they called me. Like I got an email like straight like 15 minutes later saying, "Hey, we want to interview for you this position."
Wow. What
Yeah.
about you, Marvin?
Yeah, I definitely LinkedIn is like you get out there. LinkedIn is like the golden standard. I'll say that 'cause you can definitely just the way how they got it presented. Like a lot of the job, like I guess criteria and whatnot. You know, you can sometimes you can often see like the person who's hiring if there's like a recruiter for a company or like they're like the HR person or whoever they are. You can see who they are beforehand. You could even like direct message them if you wanted. So LinkedIn's definitely that's definitely the way to go. Then I'd say Dice. Then I would say uh, probably Career Builder, but really LinkedIn and Dice I think is what I use a lot, honestly.
Maurice, what would you say some key things on your resume that you, in your opinion, that you think might have got you noticed, you know, to where
Definitely, I think the staking, like communicating with stakeholders. Also, I think the Tableau, they kind of looked at that too because they wanted some type of informatica, but I don't know informatica. And I think those are the only, like the big two that got me pretty much.
What about you, Marvin?
Yeah, I say a lot of people that they I don't know, a lot of people like they see like all of the SQL and the SSI and SSR stuff. I don't, but they don't really care. They just think it's good as this there. I think people should really look into like trying to get a little bit of experience with like those reporting tools, like Maurice said, like the Tableau and the Power BI and whatnot. Because oftentimes I get calls for that. But so I would say like this, just like having certain reporting tools in my resume on top of I guess I guess you say like oftentimes it's like the companies that I worked with, my resume as well, help me to get looked at. Like I like I tell you, I think like the other day, like that one company that called me a while ago that had put my resume in like last year and they just getting around to me because I guess they're just hiring or trying to hire, but but they said they looked at like they were looking for somebody who had like Java experience, which I do have. That was one of the main things they were looking for, so that's on my resume as well. So if you could have like some some little like other programming experience other than the SQL, whatnot, some Java, some Python, whatever, that'll help because that helped them to call me. But also, like I said, the places that I worked for as well. That's why they hit me up.
Let me back up on that a little bit as far as what you just mentioned, Marvin, about the whole extra type of experience on your resume, like you said, having a little bit of Java, a little bit of Python, whatever. When you say that, in your opinion, how much experience should you have with that? Just enough basic experience where you know what it is and you just able to identify some elements at a basic level and maybe do a few basic things just so that it's just totally not foreign to you? Or do you feel like, well, you got to have sort of a little bit more than just a basic understanding, something maybe a little bit more on the intermediate side, you know what I mean? So because I say that because I see that, because when you look at some of these job recs, you see, and obviously we all realize that that's pretty much a wish list, from whoever's, advertising a job. But when you see that, that's kind of intimidating. When I see, okay, they do got SQL Server and SSIS on here, but they also got Python. And I don't know nothing about Python. They also have Java on here. I don't know anything about Java or anything like that. So I'm just trying to get your opinion on how deep, if someone is watching this and they're trying to decide, okay, I got to learn a little bit of something about this or that, and it could just be taking a basic Udemy course on Java, or just a basic Udemy course on Python, just so that you have some familiarity with how to connect to it and what the interface looks like, what the graphical user interface looks like, or the command line interface looks like. What do you have? What are your comments about that? Because that's something that I'm still wondering myself, even though I've got some stuff on my resume. It's still very Microsoft SQL Stack centric, and it's nothing else. But having that little bit of Python or whatever, that could blow up some algorithms and get you called, seriously, So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, you probably have to go, like you said, with at the intermediate level with it. I wouldn't put down my resume. You just like a beginner. So you had to go at least that much with it. At least know what the different data types are. Know the syntax, obviously. I think we go all the way up to like, well, what classes are and how to use them, how to use classes, like in either of those program languages. I'd say you're probably at the intermediate level then, if you know how classes work, like your classes, your functions, and things like that, man. If you know how those work, you're probably good at that point.
So your advice,
and then knowing like a couple of data structures and like a few algorithms and kind of pick up a few algorithms and know how they work as well, like sorting algorithms, like like merge sort, bubble sort, and knowing like the different runtimes and things of that nature, like the speed in which they run, which merge sort, I think that's I think it's like order log in, so that's like one of your faster kind of sorts.
So and the long and short of it, you're saying is don't try to put any of that on your resume if you have not at least got to at least a certain level of competency. Like, just take
Exactly.
just take a first level Code Academy class, one of these YouTube, or you watch a few YouTube videos. That's not going to be good enough for you to put that on your resume. You gotta go a little bit deeper with it than that, is basically what you're trying to say.
Yeah. If you know what a class is, like you're probably in a little bit of good shape there. If you just know how to use that, you can probably take it from there, because that's a pretty powerful tool. So.
All right. Well, Maurice, next question. Was there can you talk about some of the notable experiences on the interview trail when you were out there interviewing? And was there a particular line of questioning during the interview process that you went through that really stood out? Meaning that in all the interviews you had, was there one or two things that really stood out to you in regards to, wow, this is something maybe I heard in LTV that I was going to be asked and had to know about, and maybe you're kind of like sending the message out there to whoever's going to be viewing this, that what, if you guys are definitely going to be having to deal with this particular question on the interview, or a couple of questions or whatever. And so make sure that that you get it down and where you could respond to this particular question. Is there anything that's notable during your interview process?
Yeah, pretty much learning the joins, how to delete rows, duplicate rows,
Uh,
and let's see. And I guess those are the two I believe are most important that I've been asked several times. I can't think any more at the moment, but yeah, those are the two.
what about you, Marvin?
Yeah, I said know the technical stuff like what Maurice said, but hey, you know me, Fred. I'm saying, boy, you better know that what you doing today, because that you gonna get asked that. You better have that backstory ready. Okay, that's the
Yeah,
most important thing in my mind. You
is that
like
back?
yeah, they ask you, you better have it ready. You better know it, because yeah, that's like one of the main things that you always gonna probably get asked.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because they can extrapolate a lot from your backstory on what your experience is. And then they may, have some extra add-ins like, well, on this part of your backstory, what were you doing, and where they can kind of see what programs you were working with or familiar with, that kind of stuff is all in your backstory. All right.
Yeah, one more, and have the long version and have the short version of that too, man.
Okay. Long version and short version. All right. That they used to call the disco version. How that ready had a radio edit. All right. Maurice, is there anything you would like to emphasize in regards to the certain interview questions that that obviously everybody can be expected to be asked, and I guess and should we absolutely be able to answer, which I think you kind of already said that as far as the join, so that question is sort of a little bit repetitive. Um,
Right. Also, they may ask you to do some board stuff. So make sure you know, like basically SQL joins, update statement, also how to delete and create tables. Pretty much drop and
yeah,
delete and create
and
tables.
that's part of what I was going to ask you as far as, and I guess what can replace that question is whiteboard stuff. Is there any notable whiteboard stuff that you had to get up on the whiteboard, even if it was, on a Zoom call and they provide you a space to code or whatever, or anything like that? I mean, live? I know Marvin had talked about the different assessments, and I know you've had a few assessments as well, but I'm talking about the live stuff where you right there and it could be three people on the call and they looking at you, write out a Venn diagram or something. I'm just wondering did you come across anything like that? And was it anything notable from your whiteboard experience?
Yeah, just like I said, know your joins. So basically if they give you two tables, and they want the stuff that's on the left table or the stuff on the right table, or join them. And
Yeah.
then know how to delete tables
Uh,
and create tables. And also, yeah, those are pretty much the key ones that I've got
all
doing
right.
stuff.
And I know, Marvin, you interviewed a way lot more than Maurice, and you've had a lot more experiences in that arena. And I remember some of the stuff you was telling me that tripped me out with some of those logic questions. That was crazy. But do you have anything memorable from your whiteboard experiences, your live experiences, that you had to be on the spot, not an assessment you could take today and have it in by tomorrow at noon? I mean, live stuff that you had to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's just one thing that sticks out is actually two things. I remember I was on this one interview, and like I think we had just I actually because we got that little study group going. I think we had just touched on a couple of days ago, but I was in this one interview where one of the questions, I think I had to use like the information schema, but like I wasn't quite sure what the syntax was, because I think he wanted me to look up some particular table and like do something. I think like do some kind of modification to it, something like on the spot. But and like the coding was fine. It's just I couldn't remember like this again, the syntax for the information schema. So definitely might want to look into that and just remember like how to do that. If
Are you
you
talking
need
about
to.
like system dot schema dot something else, right? Dot
Yeah,
table,
yeah,
dot name, yeah, stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're look into that. Try to remember that, because you may be asked it, probably not. But if you are, you don't want to be surprised.
Yeah.
And then also it was another interview actually the company here in town. And this isn't like a weird question to ask, you know, I guess necessarily. It just in the context of SQL, it is a weird question to ask because I've never done it. But the person said you do it in any language, but like I hadn't done it in a while, so I couldn't recall. But they wanted you to, they wanted me to reverse a string. I think I mentioned it before, but don't use like the reverse string, you know, method, built-in method. You just had to reverse it, you know. And it's a way to do it, like in like in C++ or like a program language like that. Like you can just, you know, do like a for loop, and just index into the string like backwards, you know. So you can start from like you can grab the length of the string -1, because you know in program you like the first digit you start with is 0, so that's why you -1, and then from there you just use that for loop just to index backward into the string until you get to index 0, and you print that out. But you know, and I'm not gonna be too long with it, but you know, it's a little bit more complicated to do that in SQL. If you go look it up, you know, it's a lot more complicated to do that in SQL.
Wow.
You know, so that's a question that stands out.
Okay. So Maurice, the current role that you're in, is it a permanent job? Is it a contract to perm, or is it a temporary position?
Pretty much a full-time position.
Okay. And so it's full-time permanent then?
Yeah, full-time permanent.
Okay. And what about you, Maurice, the role that you're in right now?
Pretty much, you
I'm
know,
talking-
oh, you said
I mean,
Maurice.
I mean Marvin, sorry about that. Marvin.
That's it, my bad.
Well, I'm contract.
Okay. So obviously I know what part of the country you both live in, but just so they can hear it from your mouth, what part of the country do you guys live in? What state?
Pretty much Alabama.
Okay. And I know that they live not far away from the campus of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. All right. Let me see here. Maurice, what were some of the requirements that was on the actual job requisition when you applied?
Basically like SQL, SSIS, SSRS, and like I said, they wanted a little bit of Informatica, but nobody had informatical skills. So basically, like for our automation tools, we use Visual Cron. So that's it, and it's like a really good visual automation tool because you can kick off, you know, any job. Basically, send an email to tell it to kick off something.
Okay,
And
so
yeah,
like event handlers and send mail tasks, stuff like that built in.
yeah, that's also in there. It's just like SSIS kind of.
So for those of you guys that are hearing Informatica for the first time, Informatica is an Oracle product, and it's very it's on parallel with SSIS and Microsoft SQL Server. What about you, Marvin? Is there what were the particular, you know, some requirements on the actual job requisition for the role that you're currently in?
Well, for I think you would call it like, dude, the resume description was terrible, man. Honestly, like I don't think if I recall, I don't think the I don't think the description even had exactly like anything in particular on it. I think it was kind of generic, you know. And I think I know, but I knew going in that they wanted somebody who knew Tableau, because I think the recruiter, he mentioned that. So I knew they wanted somebody who knew Tableau, but I didn't know much else what they wanted going into it.
All right, back up. Let's back up right there. Obviously, everybody that's going through the LTV Academy, we're not learning Tableau. You know, obviously, we're pretty much focused on the Microsoft SQL Server stack. So what, you know, so basically, I guess some people that are watching this would wonder is that you mentioned this Tableau situation. How confident were you with Tableau as far as where did, you know, how much work did you put into Tableau as far as, you know, what, you know, you know, people, you know, going through this, it's like, man, LTV, we're learning Microsoft SQL Server, but then you got a job that, you know, primarily that, you know, it was looking for someone that was, you know, that knew how to move in Tableau. And how, you know, where did you get your Tableau training? How confident were you, like on the scale of, let's say a scale of 1 to 10, as far as you being able to deal with Tableau? Did, you know, as far as at a basic level, would you consider yourself intermediate before you got this job? I know that you've been on the job for a little bit now, so you've probably been able to really step your game up as far as Tableau, since that's what's needed. But I'm just, you know, I'm sure people will be interested in that, because some people may be watching this and may not be familiar with Tableau at all. So, you know, so just wanted you to kind of talk about that for a second.
Yeah, for that, bro. I was beginner going into the interview. I was beginner, but again, like I mentioned before, people know having your story straight will help you out, will do wonders. That story really helped me kind of like, again, kind of control the interview a bit and kind of talk around things somewhat. But you know, I do certain things, man, like, you know, like calculated fields and like, you know, dealing with parameters, things like that. You know, because he even asked me, in interview, like, what's some of the like those complicated thing you didn't have? And again, I had to talk around it because I hadn't done anything complicated in Tableau, you know. But again, this kind of this again, kind of having your backstory together and kind of, you know, being confident will definitely help you land something like this that you ain't never messed with it before. You know, but they just like you, I guess. That I think that's what it came down to. They just liked me, man. But now I say, like, I say I'm not like an expert. I'm probably like intermediate at this point in Tableau.
Okay. Well, that, you know, well, that's still some game right there. So so even though I think most of us, you know, and including me, if I was to work in, you know, in development, I'll be way comfortable if it was, you know, a SQL Server environment, because that's what I'm used to. But the job might not require that. So I, you know, so I do think in, you know, that obviously you want to spend most of your time in SQL Server, because you want to, you know, you want to get better at it, because the more you mess around with it, the more you're confident you're going to be, since that's the primary thing you've been dealing with. But don't discount, you know, looking at something else. You know, like just a couple days ago, I started kind of looking at R a little bit, you know, and just seeing what that was all about. And it does seem sort of interesting, but just think that, you know, every discipline that you can throw on your resume that you have some kind of degree of comfortability with, even at a basic level. And like Marvin was saying earlier, if you just scratching the surface on something, don't throw it on your resume like, you know, Java, and then all of a sudden, you know, well, what do you, because you're going to get called on it, because it's such a popular discipline that, you know, companies are looking for. And you know, and the algorithm might be picking up Java because they're really hungry for somebody with Java, and they hit you up, and you know, you really don't know nothing, you barely know how to spell it, but you know, it's just, it's not a good look. But yeah, don't discount that, you know, looking into another language. And I think Jerron has mentioned that a lot, that, you know, SQL is cool, but if you could throw some Python on there or something where you got some base knowledge with that SQL, it's only gonna really amplify how your resume is gonna appear to someone who's looking for somebody to fill a role. So Maurice, what are the roles and responsibilities that you're actually doing on the job, as far as your job that you do every day, you know, or most days?
Pretty much, Charles assigns me a task and I do it pretty much. It may be something about like create a store procedure, create a table, create a SSIS package, maybe, you know, fool around with SSRS a little bit. But I mean, pretty simple tasks. I mean, it's not something that where I have to like create a CTE or anything like that. But yeah, it's pretty simple tasks.
Okay, so basically, Charles, and I don't know if he hasn't mentioned Charles, but Charles is sort of his lead on his particular job. And of course, Charles has been in the game a long time. So I'm sure that there's just some tasks that Charles, like, I got to deal with all these complex issues and stuff. So the stuff that, I'm going to go ahead and offload that off onto my assistant or whoever's on my team that can deal with this kind of stuff, where I can concentrate my time on being able to untangle these more complex knots. So that's what I imagine.
Yeah, pretty much, because he has to go and like deal with NCP2P stuff pretty much. Like they get basically little TXT files where it's just basically type of like numbers in a row, and basically like we have to get like we have to send some type of complete package to like Michigan or California for their new plans to be added in to get approval. But yeah, basically he does that type of stuff, which he said he'll get me into it sometime later, but not right now, because he's trying to figure out how to do it himself and get us approved for it, pretty much. Cool. So yeah, I just do the little tasks.
All right. What about you, Marvin? What is some of the roles and responsibilities that that is part of your job profile that you perform most days?
Well, most of the time, like this one project I'm working on now, like I'm mostly in I am mostly in like they have Oracle SQL, like an Oracle, like, well, I downloaded it. They didn't have it like on, I downloaded like an Oracle SQL kind of like development environment, which is similar to, I guess, SSMS, whatever.
You talking about PL SQL?
Yeah. So it's like a PL SQL development environment. So I use that to kind of, I guess, like very quickly, like go through and kind of just run things and see what the results are beforehand. And then after that, I go into, I just started using this recently as well, because they have it, but like I haven't been using it up to this point. But Tableau Prep, I think I mentioned that yesterday, similar to an SSIS, I guess how that works. But it's a lot more simplified. So I like it a lot more than SSIS, actually, just because you can really go in there, hop in it and then build something very quickly. Because again, it's not a lot going on. This is a few elements that they have. So just I've been using that a lot to kind of like prep and put the data together beforehand, and then like at the end of the because like they have these things called flows, and this is pretty much just like it's like you have these things like flows, and you have your components, and then like in like an SSIS, you build them out, and then you put your components in, and you connect them together, and you just build, again, like I said, this flow. And at the end of it, you have this output, and that's like the data. That's where it's going to. And then once you build it out, and then everything's fine, you're not getting any errors, anything like that, you can then upload that to like the Tableau server, and then you can run it. You can either run it like in the application or on the server. But when you upload on the server, like you can then like schedule it to be run on like first of the month at midnight, whatever, and that'll like refresh, like do either like a full refresh of the data, or incremental refresh of the data. So then once you have that data, you can then pull that you can then pull that into like the Tableau report, pretty much. So you can connect to the server and you pull that data in, and then you can just transform that into an extract, and that pretty much like that speeds up everything, because it stores everything like column row stored. It's pretty much that was with that I guess that I used to like that data type or whatever it does to the data, just compresses it a bit. It makes the report runs a lot faster. And from there, I'm just dragging, and then it's creating like calculated columns, parameters, stuff like that to kind of build out the report. So that's kind of what I do.
All right. Well, that's some good word. All right. We're kind of getting close to the end, but if you don't mind, Maurice, in regards to salary range, do you make in between an annual salary of between 55K and 64K, 65K and 74K, 75K to 84K, 84K to 95K, or over 95K?
It's like 60 to 65K.
Okay. What about you, Marvin?
It's 75 to 85.
Okay. So, is there any words of advice, Maurice, and encouragement that you would like to share with the students or anybody that may be seeing this interview and trying to make a decision of whether they want to jump into the into the LTV wading pool and get wet?
Yeah, go ahead and do it. I mean, it's a very good program that Sub has. Because when I was getting into it, I didn't know anything about SQL. I mean, I had to go to my brother and be like, "Hey, Marvin, how you set this up? How you set this up?" And as soon as I got on a job, you know, I started pretty much just learning about getting paid, which is a good thing. You
Yes.
know, just coming from knowing nothing. You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, don't wait. Just get into it now. I mean, Sub's gonna treat you right. He came here every day. He didn't miss a day, and if he did, he told us right out back, "Hey, I'm doing this. Something's wrong." Sub, he's a good person, and I appreciate Sub for this.
And if you guys are watching this interview, $65,000 to $70,000 a year is much better than $17 an hour. So I think he hit the jackpot. What about you, Marvin?
Yeah, it's like kind of same thing Maurice said, but but let me clarify. Like I didn't know SQL beforehand either. It's just I had I guess programming language experience beforehand. So I just want to clarify that I didn't know about it either. But like my main thing, yeah, definitely like Maurice said, definitely go ahead and do it. This like a good opportunity. And like my main thing, I want to really push this home. Like if you do it, you go through the whole process and you ready, man, again, have your story together. That's so important.
Yeah, and also record the interviews. Also,
I would not be working if I didn't. And yeah, record the interviews too. I forgot about that. Record every interview you can. Record it and again, share it with people. Get their take on it. Listen to it. If like Fred, like me and you, bro, like whenever I do an interview, man, hey, I was sharing it with the group. Letting them listen to it, get they take on it, whatever. And also you record those interviews, like you could if they say something really good in the interview, you could take that. You could take that and use it as your own, pretty much. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's a lot of good game you guys, I'm sure, will witness in this. If you watch this whole thing, maybe watch it 2 or 3 times. I to summarize what they were saying about the things that are important, make sure you know your joins, make sure you know something about some store procedures, and you know how to build some tables, and you know how to update some tables, you know how to insert data into some tables, and you have a backstory intact, because that backstory is really a huge thing, because from that backstory they're able to extract from that, especially somebody that's experienced, that's interviewing you. They'll be able to extract that you've been in a certain environment, you kind of know what the pace is, and that you kind of know your way around. And also, I'm going to share my screen for a second, because this is something I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but I think this is important as well, that you have an addendum to your resume, the back page of your resume, to kind of show some things of how things that you've learned and what you're comfortable with in SQL Server. And I'm going to share my screen for a second and just show this. There we go. And as you guys can see here, and if you want to take a screenshot of this or whatever, or watch the video, this is just a list of bullet points of things that, going through the LTV Academy, that you should be familiar enough to be able to talk about. And when you have this laid out on your resume like this is going to hit some algorithms in regards to what someone may be looking for in regards to SQL, and maybe some other things that they're like, okay, if you can do that in SQL, that these bullet points are transferable to something else. So I just thought I'd just show this so that you guys can take a screenshot, of this, and maybe, put it in your own words or create your own thing. But most of these things you should be able to speak on if you're asked about them in an interview. You know, and especially, you know, maybe, and if you're just going just straight SQL, maybe you cut it off before you get familiar with integration services, or if you're more familiar with SQL integration services, you might want to cut it off with an understanding of SQL SSRS data sources. But I just think that this is just a great thing to have on your resume bulleted, so that, you know, you kind of can control the interview to a certain degree, that, hey, okay, and people might, instead of them asking you their own questions, they may look at this and go, oh, this is something we do here. What, you know, tell me about, you know, what's going on with inserting data in a database? What type of data did you have to insert? Or what is your understanding about indexes and index scans and index seeks? You know, they may pull some stuff off of this to interview you, you know, with stuff that's on your resume. And then you should already know it. So that's going, you know, at least the interview could be, you know, it could be more predictable. It could possibly be more predictable. But I just wanted to throw this up on the screen. And so I'm going to close this out with, you know, these series of interviews is obviously they're done to kind of motivate people that might be on the fence, that might be, you know, that are in the program and maybe like, you know what, I don't know, it's tough. I might have to, you know, take a flyer and drop out, or, you know, or quit, or, you know, for someone who's just trying to make a decision on whether they want to make the investment in themselves to, you know, to go ahead and
hey, but Fred, let me say this is not hard. This is not hard.
Yeah,
You may think it's hard, but it is not hard. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It's the easiest. I feel like it's the easiest.
It's really easy. It just looks hard initially, but it's really easy.
All right. So just if that can spur anybody to at least investigate this thing and get in here, like Marvin just said, it looks hard, but once you get on the other side of it, and you know, and that's what's tripping me out. It seemed like the hardest part is just getting put on somewhere. But once you get put on, it's like, man, what? You know, you know, I've heard some crazy stories of what people are doing and getting paid big money. You know, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? You know, but that's just the nature of the beast. You got to get on the other side of it, but you have to have enough knowledge and enough game to be able to convince somebody to put you on. So that's what the whole thing is about. And that's about learning the lingo, learning some things about some functions, some operations, some things like that, to where you can speak to it and build some confidence in somebody who's interviewing you. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it right there. It was a good job, Maurice and Marvin. I'm glad you guys were able to spend some time, and I'm gonna close this interview with by dedicating this series of interviews to brother Kevin Harley, who was a part of the LTV family. He was a DBA. He jumped into LTV to try to learn some development to put together with his DBA experience, so that he can increase his pay grade and move his own personal game to the next level. And unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly about a month ago, and he's no longer here. And I always say, hey, you know what I mean? Think about this, brother. And when you're on your own journey, and carve out a little piece of your journey in memory of him, to where we can, you know, finish something that he's not here to finish. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. But anyway, thanks, guys, and I'll see you guys on the other side.